Hey everyone, it's me, Molly Hudelson, your host of Generation TC. Thanks everyone for your continued support of the show. Like I keep saying, it's been a lot of fun interacting and engaging with everyone online. So if you like what you hear, please make sure to keep up with us on social media at Generation GC Pod, POD, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Make sure you subscribe to the show on iTunes, rate, leave a review, and, of course, share it with a friend. If you want to help me keep the show going, you can also choose to support the show on Anchor, and that helps me do things like print stickers and just make sure I can have the right equipment, software, etc. to make the show the best that it can be. And now, on to our episode. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 9 of the Generation GC podcast. My name is Molly. I am your host. I am here today with Casey Crawford from the band Virginity. If you're a longtime listener of the show, you'll know that last week we talked about Shadowboxer from Generation RX. Today we're here talking about Screamer from Good Charlotte's self-titled album. Next week we'll be back with a song from The Young and the Hopeless. Casey, hello.
What up?
What up? Casey, I'm super stoked to be doing this. So for everyone listening, we're recording this on April 21st. Virginity has just announced that they've signed today. You guys announced that you signed to Wiretap Records and that you are going to be releasing a new EP, Death to the Party, on June 5th. So everyone listening, go check that out, because by the time you're listening to this, the EP will basically be out there.
Yes, you got 2 days to wait if you're listening to this day of.
Yeah.
And if not, you've already heard one of the songs, probably, or you can go hear one of them because the first single will come out. And I can say this, I'm not supposed to say it yet, but because time travel,
yes,
I can say it here. The first single called Bad Call will be out on May 8th.
Sweet. Awesome. So we are talking today about Screamer from Good Charlotte's self-titled album, their debut album. If you had the original version of the album before the click was included on it, Screamer would have been track 12. But if you had the version once they added the click, it was track 13, which, just as a side note, like, I always found that funny because I feel like usually when you get an album reissue or like bonus edition that has extra tracks, like usually I feel like they'd put them at the end. But
yeah, not in the middle, but
right,
just kind of towards the end. Yeah,
I
interesting.
Mean, it's like if you listen to how the album flows, like Change, because I was just listening to the full album today, like Change and Thank You Mom that they end with are very like slow kind of songs. So it's like I get why they might not want to put I do get why they might not want to put the click like after that.
At the very end, yeah.
Right.
Well, because the thing about it is, and I know we're talking about Screamer, but I'm just trying to imagine a world in which, because I did not know that about it. Yeah. I'm trying to imagine a world in where that album exists and the click isn't on it, because the click is a bop.
Right. And I mean, we could, I have an episode scheduled to record about the click at some time in the near or distant future. And yeah, there's lots to talk about with that. And like, if you go on Spotify right now, the click is not on the album on Spotify.
What?
Yeah.
I didn't even. That's so insane.
So weird. But yeah, so we're talking about Screamer, which is kind of a deep cut. Not a single. Yeah. They haven't played it live really since they were touring off the first record. I found a video of them playing it at the Metro Cafe in Washington, D.C. in 1999. And this was uploaded to the Madden YouTube, like their management YouTube, in 2016, like to kind of promote that fall tour they were doing around Youth Authority. But like, I mean, I guess that must have been, Benji or Joel just kind of had that video and they kept it.
Yeah, I've actually, I've seen them play it live.
Oh, really?
Because I'm very old. Not very old. I'm 32.
Okay.
So I saw Good Charlotte at the Warped Tour in the summer of 2001.
Oh, wow.
And this was the only thing out. So it's not like they had like a lot of things to pull from to fill a 30-minute set. I mean, the album's not much longer than 30 minutes. And I am positive they played Screamer.
Right. Yeah. I mean, they toured, I guess, like in the touring off the first record, they probably would have played it then. So it was like all the touring off that record. But it seems like once they got the Young and the Hopeless came out, they kind of dropped it out of the rotation and like never really added it back.
Yeah, which I can totally understand as a person that writes songs. Like if I had more to choose from, I probably, and I know I picked Screamer, but I can absolutely see dropping it.
Sure, yeah. So we'll come back to that question because I think that's a question I would like to come back to. But I want to know, why you wanted to talk about this song. For everyone listening, so I connected with Casey, I guess it probably would have been last month in March. So if you're listening a few months ago in March, my friend Scott Fugger hosts a podcast, Fly in the Call, and I think he interviewed you for The Alternative. And I was just like texting with him, telling him about this podcast that like I don't think I had even officially launched yet. And Scott tells me like, oh, I think Casey from Virginity really likes that first Good Charlotte record. And when I emailed you, Casey, like by the time I could even like text Scott to be like, oh, hey, thank you for, telling me to reach out to Casey, you replied like super quickly telling me you wanted to talk about Screamer. So why did you want to talk about this song in particular?
Yeah, great question. So like you sent that email and when I initially responded, I was just like, yeah, absolutely. I want to talk about it because I want to talk about something off the first record because that's the one that I love. And honestly, it's really the only one I know super well. Yeah. And I don't know. I really love I love bands' first albums because they're the most them.
Okay.
Like there's no, I don't know, like I've even felt this in myself as, we're getting ready to put out a new EP, and while I was writing it and while we were recording it, and now we're working on our second LP and I'm writing it and we're recording it. We're like pre-production right now doing demos. It's because of COVID. We're doing them from our own separate houses, which has been a really interesting test of collaboration. And it's making for some really weird stuff too. But like when we made With Time, our first thing, and I feel this is probably the same for most bands, no one knew we existed. It was made completely in a vacuum. And I assumed, not that it's like a massive hit or anything, but way more people have listened to it than I ever. I was just like, yeah, probably 12 of my friends, and that's it. Right. Like we weren't even a band really. Like I was doing stand-up comedy, and then like it just sort of like spiraled into this. I thought this was kind of just like a fun little thing to do. Yeah. So for anyone that is listening, could you give an overview? So I was listening to a podcast you had done. I think it was I Don't Want to Hear It. And you mentioned on that podcast that like you had played music in the past, but you hadn't played a show in like a decade or something. You played a cover set and then this kind of happened. So was there anything that like specifically sparked the start of Virginity? Yeah, I mean, it was a mixture of all of those things. Like I've been doing stand up for like 5 years, and I was just feeling real stagnant with it. I had gotten to the point where I had kind of topped out. I kind of reached the ceiling of the things I can do here in Florida. Like I was doing all the shows, like I was, doing the improv intermittently, but I could show up to any like indie show or whatever, and I could just get time. So that in the life of a comedian, that is the point. You start in your hometown and then you move to New York or LA. Right. And, but I can't do that. Or I wasn't prepared to anyway. So I was just feeling like, well, hit the ceiling. There's no, can I swear?
Yes, you can swear.
Okay.
Yes.
I was like, okay, I hit the ceiling and I don't know where to go from here. And then that cover show got kind of offered to us, or I knew the dude that was running it. And me and my friend Jim, who's in the band, he plays drums, and he makes, if you like Virginity, it's because Jim is in the band. Like, I hand him these like 3/4 written on acoustic emo folk diddlies, and then he turns them into good songs.
So he's the like arrangement.
Yeah, he helps with arrangement and dynamic.
Okay.
Like, I write the lyrics, I write the melody, and I'll put most of it together, and then he's just like he'll be like, this is great, this fucking sucks, let's make this better.
Well, you kind of need that though, like that person. I mean, as nice as it is to, you know, feel like people like think every word that comes out of your mouth is, you know, total genius, I think you kind of need that person that's willing to say, okay, this sucks, don't do this.
And me and Jim have that sort of relationship where we are it's gotten to the point where I've never been like this creatively open and collaborative with anybody in my life. Like, it feels like a really different relationship than anyone I've ever had, because like we will instantly be like, this is incredible, and we both are knowing it and feeling it. But if something isn't hitting, like, I'll just be like, I fucking hate this. And he'll be like, yeah, it is bad. You blew it on this one. But anyways, yeah. So like, we made With Time in a Vacuum, and it's like really, you know, pretty open and honest.
It's very open and honest, yeah.
And there was no guard, and there's no guard because I didn't think anybody would hear it. And I feel like that is how everybody's kind of first record is just like, it's all you have assumed no one will listen to it, and in that way you're completely free of expectation of anything. And I think that's why I really like Good Charlotte's first album, and it's so cheesy and like dumb, and they're doing fucking like chicka chicka and shit, like it is cringeworthy and embarrassing, but it's also so in their lives at that moment, they were just like, yo, I'm gonna do like fucking fake beatbox and shit, and they're like, that's so dope.
right. Well, I think, and I feel like what you said about just kind of making it in a vacuum, in a sense, I think that's a great point. They might not have been willing to, I don't know. I mean, definitely on, you know, later records, they played around with what kind of sound they went for, but
sure. I mean, there's always experimentation, but there's so many like kind of embarrassing things that they are doing on this record.
Oh yeah.
And I feel like it, and a lot of them don't return. And I feel like that's because they were just hanging out with their, you know, I mean, it's two brothers who they're not ashamed to do anything in front of each other. Probably.
Right. Not just two brothers, two identical twins.
Yeah. Like, so they've grown up being treated like the same person. So there's zero shame between those two.
Yeah.
And then like, you know, and then they're probably lifelong buddies. Like, they just weren't embarrassed to do some of these things. And I think that's what makes it so fucking endearing and good. And Screamer is a kind of a great encapsulation of that, because it's also like this such like a teenage notion of like not being heard, as if it matters if you're fucking heard.
Well, it's like, so let's talk about what the song, what the lyrics are about. I mean, like you said, I think it's about not being heard, not being understood, and I think it's like partially it's feeling like you're this big dreamer that is not totally there yet, but you're you know, you have these dreams, like you're going after them, you just don't feel understood, and as well, just in general, I think feeling like you have a lot to say, trying to say it, and just being so fed up that like nobody is listening. I think it is, I don't know, it's definitely, I think, a very teenage thing, but I feel like you have to keep, I mean, if you're doing anything,
I mean, that's a necessary part of life.
Yeah.
It's like feeling as a teenager that you're not heard. Literally everyone feels like that. and to say it so openly and blatantly, like any teenage kids listening to this, which I was.
Yeah.
I was 13 or 14 when this came out, so like I was just like, fuck yeah, dude.
Right.
I'm a dreamer too. And no one believes me.
Right. I would have been, The Young and the Hopeless was the first record that I heard when I was 11. And then I think I had just turned 12 and I found out that this record existed. And yeah, I was like, fuck, this is like revolutionary. This is so great. Like, this is me. This is how I feel. And I wrote down, so, like we were saying before, they haven't played this song in about 20 years, but earlier in April, Benji and Joel had done this acoustic live stream on Veeps, which is this like platform that they created for fans to connect with bands. And Benji, here, I'll read what Benji said. I had written out. He said, I think when you're younger, you're sort of a little kid. It's a lot easier to be vulnerable. And then I think when you get out into the world, you can tend to shy away a little bit because you get hit a few times by critics or haters or whatever. And the little kid in you kind of shies away a little bit. And I think that makes the first record a very pure one. So
yeah, that's so much better and succinctly put than exactly what I was trying to say, though.
Yeah. But I think, I don't know, do you think it's growing up and in the way that everyone does that can make people like withdraw? Or do you think it's specifically being, a band that is in the public eye in such a big way and that receives like feedback from the public?
I don't know. And I wonder about that all the time. Or like, I don't know. I kind of hate, this sounds psychotic, but I tell my wife this all the time, and I've thought it my whole life. So like, the people in Good Charlotte, they're obviously creative people, yeah. and beyond a creative person, like to them, obviously it's not enough to make a neat fucking scrapbook or something and be like, I have created. You need other people's approval and opinions. And I am the same way. And anybody that's in a band is.
I'm not in a band, but like I need the same. Doing this podcast and all my writing. Like, yeah, I want other people to like it.
Totally. And I guess there's probably some amount of that even in things that aren't necessarily creative. Like if you were, I don't know, a fucking athlete or something.
Yeah, totally.
So I guess there's probably some amount of this in everybody in some sort of way, but it just seems like such a blatant open way to do it as like a musician or something. Like you're really just being like, these are my feelings. Oh God, you better like them. I'll fucking kill myself.
But, I was thinking, because like when I would not say I am a musician, but I own a guitar and, have written songs in quotation marks and, have written very angry and very sad poems over the years when I've, had the need to do so.
Hell yeah.
And I'm like, especially listening to this song really brought me back to being like 13 and writing for the first time. And like, I kind of miss in a way that feeling of being so unfiltered. Because now, so I put out a book at the end of last year called I Told You I Hated New York. And it's like an anthology of poems and essays and such. So a lot of like really personal stuff. But
cool. Yeah,
so even as I was putting that together, I was like, as open as I am with this, there was a lot of like, okay, shit, is what I'm saying conveying my emotions correctly? Ooh, do I really want to put this out there? Maybe I should remove that paragraph. And I kind of miss that being just so young and fresh and feeling like, okay, I can just like, spew whatever is on my brain onto the page, stream of consciousness, let it flow.
Sure. Which I get, Yeah, I guess I just wish, if I got to pick, which I can't, unfortunately, I probably wouldn't have picked to be like this.
Pick to be like what?
To be a creative person. I probably, like, I wish I could have, I don't know, been fucking good at math, gone and been an accountant, and had that be a thing that could feel fulfilling to me.
Yeah.
And it's not, and I wish it was constantly, because as fun as doing the creative stuff is, it's also, I'm always, I am down a lot. Yeah.
Well, so I will say I definitely relate to that a lot. So I don't think I've talked about this on the podcast yet, but for anyone listening, I went to college initially for engineering and pre-med and changed my major a few times and ended up working full-time in the music industry. But obviously it was a lot of, stress trying to figure that out and what exactly I was going to be doing. Why does it get you down? Because I will say I can definitely relate to that, but I would be curious to know like what the feeling comes from for you.
I guess it's like, why does it get me down? That's such a good question. Like, it's because, are you familiar with Bo Burnham?
Slightly, like I know who he is, but I haven't like watch any of his stuff.
So on his last special, this kind of I went and saw him do this last tour that he did, which very well could be his last tour he's ever done. There was a real sense of finality to it. And like, his shows act as a narrative. It's not like any sort of traditional stand-up. It's not even really stand-up. It's a one-man show that is funny.
Okay.
But so and he's been open in interviews and stuff and talked about how, like, he, even on the night of them shooting this last special, he was having a fucking panic attack, and he was just like, I just don't know if I can do this anymore. But so the show ends with him doing this thing where he was making fun of Kanye West.
Okay.
And the thing that Kanye did on the Yeezus tour at the end, where he would sort of, there was just sort of like a backing track, like an organ, and there was auto-tune over his voice, and he would just sort of stream of consciousness rant about random stuff. And so Bo did this, but it wasn't stream. It was very, very much written, but it seemed like stream of consciousness stuff. And at first he's talking about funny, like, goofy little things, and it's very silly and funny, but then it takes this very like sincere, serious turn where he's just like, I want to say these things that I feel I have to say, because that's how it fulfills me, and I have a deep need for it to fulfill you too. But I don't want to care about what you think either. And I, like, you're my biggest, you're the audience, you're the thing I'm most in love with, and you're the thing I fear the most. And like, and it was just like when I saw it live, I was sobbing.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Like, I've never, like, I feel a little like I'm a little glassy-eyed just talking about it right now. Every time I watch it, it makes me cry. It's like the most, like, I've never felt seen more than that, and I'm not even close to like having like an audience like he does. I can't even imagine like the sort of pressure he must feel, and then to also have it be a thing that you feel like you need. It's like, it was like such a, and it's, oh man, it's, I suggest, like, you can look this up on YouTube, like this clip of it. But it's from his last special, Make Happy. I feel everybody that does some creative work should watch this, because it'll fucking move you. And like, he does something, he's talking about going to Moe's. It's so stupid. He's talking about going to Moe's and like getting a burrito, and it's funny the way he's talking about it. He's talking about how they put too much shit on his burrito and it like fell apart. Like, and it's silly and it's funny, but then he comes back to it after he gets serious. And it's the most profoundly sad thing I've ever fucking seen.
Okay. Yeah, I'll watch that, and I'll link the video in the show notes. So when people are listening, they can find the video easily. Yeah, it's like there's this interesting juxtaposition, I think, between like you want to create because you have this like burning fire inside of you that is like, you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do this. And you want that validation, but you also want to just say whatever you have to say without people liking it. And it's like, okay, what do you like? What do you create? What
like
do you
want
do?
them to have an opinion on it, but you don't want that opinion to be a bad opinion.
Right.
Like, and
right.
I guess that's why I picked Screamer, because as dumb as it is, and it is dumb.
Yeah.
It's also, I feel kind of deeply about that, like feeling like I know I have something to say that's worth hearing.
Yeah.
And people won't hear me. Like, there's that sort of fucking desperation, which like, even cheesy as it is now, and is like, you know, I'm in my 30s, so my feelings about that are a little bit more tempered. There is still a part of me that does kind of still identify with the fucking stupidity of Screamer.
Yeah. Well, I think, I mean, I'm 28, so I also, but I you know, I've worked full time in music for a couple of years now, but I am constantly thinking like, okay, what's next? Like, what's next? You know, like, okay, I put out a book. What's next? You know?
And that is kind of what it feels like. And it also like, and then as things progress, the momentum that you have doesn't feel as great as maybe you think. Like, for instance, signing to Wiretap.
Yeah.
A 16-year-old me, knowing that I'm signed to a legitimate label with bands I like on it. Like, I would be doing fucking backflips, but for this, like when we got the deal and stuff, like I was stoked, totally, but I wasn't like, it just felt like the next thing that should be happening. Well, and I'm wondering where it goes from there. Like, it's never enough.
I mean, even like I watched Taylor Swift's documentary, Miss Americana, and even Taylor Swift talked about in this documentary, like there was a lot of that what next kind of feeling, you know?
Yeah, I guess that's maybe one of the most upsetting things, or the things that like gets me down. It's just like, well, it is making progress, and I still am feeling like that I want whatever's next, whatever's after this. Maybe that'll make me happy, but it doesn't. I just want the thing past that.
Right. And I feel like it's kind of like, you know, when you're younger, it's like you have this idea and it seems like the most incredible thing in the world, but it's really far away. And that's kind of almost what makes it so exciting. And I don't know. It's like, it's still exciting, you know, it's still exciting to do those things you've always dreamed of. I mean, like, I got to go on Warped Tour. I worked a whole summer on Warped Tour a few years ago, 2016. And it was insane. It was awesome. It was so great. I have no regrets about doing that. Like, I'm so glad I did it. I have so many great memories. But it was definitely also like, for so long, I had been like, I want to work on Warped Tour. I want to get on Warped Tour. I want to get on Warped Tour. That I kind of like forgot to figure out like, okay, and then what will I do after Warped Tour?
Totally.
So I noted recently, Casey, like a few days ago, you tweeted about Relient K. So did you get to see them when they toured with Good Charlotte in 2005?
I did not, although I have seen Relient K many times. They're one of my all-time favorite bands, and one of the first bands that I like when I first started getting into like punk stuff, pop punk music and stuff. They were like, I was really super Christian. Okay. So this was like one of the things I was like allowed to really like. And like my family would be like, oh yeah, now this is a good band. Now this is music. They don't cuss like Blink-182.
I mean, Benji and Joel Madden are Christians, but Good Charlotte is.
I remember showing my mother the liner notes of the first Good Charlotte Welcome. or album when they're in the liner notes. Benji and Joel are both like, "My Lord and Savior Jesus Christ," and I was just like, "Yo, they said Lord. They didn't say God. They said Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. That means they're legit." I showed my mom. I was like, "Hey, these punk boys are Christian." She was like, "Oh, that's great."
So mom gave the thumbs up.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that.
Yeah, but I did not see them in 2005. I didn't even know Good Charlotte went on tour with Relient K. That's an interesting
fact. So it was the Noise to the World tour, Good Charlotte, Simple Plan, and then Relient K opened. And I went to that tour in Philadelphia, but I was late. Like I say I was late, like my dad, made me go to this, I don't know, it was like a high school orientation or something. My dad that was driving me and my friend because I was like 13. So we missed Relient K set. So I still have never seen Relient K.
Oh man, I went and saw Relient K. It was okay. Well, my first concert was seeing Britney Spears at the Ocean Center here in Daytona Beach on her very first tour. I'm so glad that that's become cool because there was a lot of my life where I was just like, I'm not fucking telling anybody this.
Yeah.
But yeah, first tour, LFO opened.
Oh my God, LFO.
So Hit Me Baby One More Time was at its fucking peak. And that's like all she had out at that point. I remember she played crazy. She was like, "This is a new song. This song isn't out yet."
Oh, wow.
And but anyways, my next concert, the very next thing I went to, of course, Christian based, was the OC Supertones Christian ska band, and the opener was Relient K, and that was their first tour.
Wow. I
have an autographed picture of Relient K.
Is Relient K still touring?
They are still touring a little bit. I know that Matt Thiessen is he does like a lot of production shit because he's such an incredible, like, Brian Wilson level of hearing harmonies.
Ooh,
like companies will hire him to be like, just come in and guide our singer through this.
I love that.
And he fucking rocks. So they still do some stuff from time to time. They've had many lineup changes, but Matt Thiessen and Matt Hoops are still, it's kind of just them now.
Okay.
But yeah, their last album was not nothing to fucking write home about.
Yeah.
But like, boy oh boy, I fucking love Relient K.
Awesome. I also wanted to ask about stand-up comedy and you being a stand-up comedian. I mean, are you still doing that, and is that something that you feel like informs your music?
I feel it informs my music in that, I don't know, some people pick up on it and some people don't. Like, the songs, especially on With Time, there is a kind of dark sense of humor to some of them. It's not blatant. It's very subtle. Not everyone picks. It can seem melodramatic if you don't think it's kind of funny. But I do think some of the songs are like, I don't know, like OCC, which is a song about the Orlando comedy scene.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, I know it's music, so everybody thinks that song is about like a music community.
Yeah.
I mean, and there's no reason that they shouldn't or should, and they can take it however they want. It doesn't matter. Right. But it's about the Orlando comedy community. It's called OCC, and I wrote it out as words, but what it really means is the letters OCC, which is a Facebook group that stands for Orlando Comedy Community.
Oh God.
Where elder comics, it's a private group where they just talk fucking shit about younger comics.
Oh. I mean, I've definitely seen things like that in music and, the various local music groups.
Yeah, I don't know that Facebook group exists anymore. It's sort of imploded in on itself because that's what happens when you become a fucking piece of shit.
Yeah.
But that's what that song is about. And I think that song, while it is angry, I do think that there's an element of humor to it It's so over the top angry. Like, it's sort of funny. I don't know.
I can see that. So okay,
it informs it in that sort of way. I'm not really focusing on. Well, so I mean, this was supposed to be a break from comedy. Like, I'm going to do this recording project, and I just won't think about comedy for a while. But then, but then people, listened to it and gave a shit about it. So then it became like a thing I'm pursuing, and so I've kind of not been pursuing comedy at all. Because
now you're kind of like, okay, I guess I'm doing this.
Yeah, like, and I do miss comedy, and I still go. I go to at least the local Daytona comedy night, fairly often. And I don't even get up most of the times, but it's just like, I spent so much time with these people, especially the Daytona community, because like people, like when I first started doing it, people like made fun of Daytona all the time, like Orlando and stuff. So Orlando, Jacksonville, and Melbourne all have really vibrant, cool comedy scenes, and Daytona is like right in the middle of that. And so we're an hour away from all of those places.
Okay, I was going to ask like how far you were from Orlando.
Yeah, so when I first came, Daytona was like very much unto itself, and they didn't travel anywhere. But they were only, doing an open mic once every 2 weeks. And I was like, guys, this isn't enough. We got to start driving. So we would all pile in my van, and we would go out 3-4 nights a week, and, get up a few times a night and stuff. And so we started making a name for ourselves. And then ultimately, like, the show that we have here, which is at a bar called Tiernanog, celebrating tomorrow its 10-year anniversary of doing comedy, has become a place where now people travel to Daytona to get up at the Nog and stuff. So I fucking completely forgot where I was going with this. Those people feel like I don't know, family to me. So I can't, like, even though I'm not getting up, like, I'm not
you still like want to be there.
Yeah, I can't like just walk away from like comedy, unlike music, in its failures, bonds you with people.
Okay.
Like, when you're a band and a show doesn't go well, you are with your band. And at the end of the day, you can all sit back together and be like, oh, fuck it, right? This was still fun. It doesn't matter. When you're a comedian, you fail alone. And so that failure alone is something you come to bond over. Being like, I fucking ate shit tonight. And they go, you really did. Nice job, idiot.
So like no one, there was no one up there with you, but everyone else in the room has probably been there and also ate shit plenty of times.
Yeah, totally. I mean, most of comedy is eating shit. Even when you get good at it, it still doesn't go well. There's, like a quarter of the time.
There's someone that I'm Facebook friends with, he used to live in New York, and so we knew each other through like the music scene around here, and he moved to LA a couple years ago to pursue comedy, and like he'll post about how many sets he's done that year, and it's like hundreds and hundreds of sets.
Oh sure, yeah. In my first year I did around 200 sets, and in my second year I did like well over 250. Like, that's just kind of how you get good at it, is you just go up and you fail and you fail and you fail until at some point you're like, I'm not failing as much.
So when you're going up to something like that, like, are you booked on, an open mic in advance, or is it like you get there and put your name on a clipboard?
There's both of those things.
Okay.
There's an open mic. That's where you get there. Get there early, because you don't want to fucking be the 20th comic.
Right.
And then there's showcase shows, which will be, like maybe 10 comics, and you're all doing 7 to 10 minutes. And that is pre-booked. And then, there's like comedy club shows, which is where there's a headliner doing an hour. There's an opener that does maybe 20 before them. And, and a host that does like 5-10.
Like MC. Okay. Yeah. I have not been to I'm not like familiar with the comedy scene at all. So I was just always curious how that kind of worked.
Yeah. It's such an arduous, awful thing. I mean, it's a lot of fun, and I've never laughed harder in my life than like times where I'm in the van with a bunch of comedians and we're driving to do, like inexplicably driving 2 fucking hours to do 5 minutes at the worst open mic in the world.
Right.
And it seems like that's important.
Right.
It's not.
There's like a thrill in that, because I mean, I'll say like on my end, I remember not being a comedian, but being, 19. Yeah, I guess I would have been 19 when I started shooting shows and being in Ohio for school and like being like, what, I'm going to drive 2 hours to Toledo to photograph this like DIY punk show in Toledo. And it felt like the most important thing in the world at that time.
Yeah. But I mean, I guess that's like sort of like everybody feels like that. There's these things that, in the grand scheme of things don't matter, but you kind of convince yourself they matter. And it's kind of important that you convince yourself that they matter, because enough things that don't matter add up to maybe something that does matter. Yeah.
No, that's a great point. And you have to, I mean, to go back to what we've been talking about with Screamer, you have to convince yourself that shit matters if you're going to have these dreams and want to like actually pursue them.
Right. And that you have something of value to say, like, especially in comedy and songwriting, like being like, no, I listen, I'm different. I'm a little bit different.
I'm not like the rest. Yeah.
Yeah. And so maybe, I guess ultimately to answer your question, that's why I picked Screamer.
Yeah.
It's a snapshot of like that sort of human need to be heard and be told that what you're saying is important.
Yeah. Definitely a human need. So I wanted to go over, I wasn't able to find a whole lot of reviews that mentioned this song particularly, but I always like to look at what critics have said about, certain songs, like what's come up in interviews. And I did find one review from Sputnik Music. I mean, to put it in perspective, obvious fact, this album came out in the year 2000, and in the year 2000, yes, obviously there was stuff happening online, but it wasn't like you had this incredible amount of music blogs like you do now. So naturally there wasn't like as much online coverage. As well as, this record was not an incredible critical commercial success like The Young and the Hopeless was. So yeah, I found one review from Sputnik Music. It looks like kind of a user review that was written in 2006, and they said basically what I noted about this song was they just talked about how much they liked the bass lines. I would hazard a guess that the person who wrote this was a bassist. I don't want to say
Probably.
They definitely are, but it's like if you're writing like a whole paragraph talking about all the bass lines throughout the album, what they say about Screamer, the writer says, along with Screamer, the bass drags along the emotion along the verse with the high-pitched guitar. The intro, the emotion keeps on flooding through the song as Joel unleashes some of the best lyrics he has ever written. Very uplifting about when life gets you down, just hold on and you'll get by. What I found interesting about this review, and I think frankly, like, it is not a unique perspective at all, really, is that you could really tell that the person writing this review was like really trying to restrain themselves from admitting that they liked a good Charlotte record.
It is embarrassing a little bit too. Well, I don't give a shit anymore.
Right. I mean, clearly I don't give a shit. Like, I'm doing this podcast.
Yeah. Like, if it's just like the Britney Spears thing. If you hold out long enough, eventually it'll fucking be cool, even if it's not very cool at the time. Although I did have a big old Good Charlotte poster hanging on my wall that I bought the Hot Topic.
Oh, yeah.
From this era. But yeah, like, I'm married and I have children. There's no amount of anything I could ever do to be cool. So nothing matters anymore.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, they'll just be like, at the end of the day, I have a child, a 13-year-old son that will look at me and be like, you're the biggest fucking loser.
Oh, 100%. 100%. And I'm sure when Joel Madden's and Benji Madden's kids, you know, and you know, Paul and Billy's, when their kids are that age, they will turn to their parents and say, "You're such a dork." And that's what I was like with my parents when I was 13, you know?
Oh yeah, 100%. And like I realize now that like my mom is pretty my mom was into and had seen live the fucking Runaways. And Joan Jett was like her favorite musician her whole life and stuff, which was in my high school band. Side note to that. The year we played Warped Tour was the year that Joan Jett played, and I sent my mom a picture from the stage watching Joan Jett, and I was just like, look I did it.
Yeah.
But I definitely thought my mom was a loser at the time, but now I'm just like, actually my mom's kind of cool.
But that's also like kind of a necessary part of you know, human development, right? I mean, I remember my dad singing along to the Good Charlotte CDs that I would like blast through their house so loud, you know, and kind of sounded like he was sort of mocking it. But like, I even look back on that and I'm like, okay, he was like into it and like would support it. And my dad is also a musician. So I'm like, like, okay, that's like, my dad's.
It's like, well, they have like undeniable pop sensibility from the ground floor. Like anybody that would listen to the first Good Charlotte album and be like, "This is bad," I would just be like, "Well, then you probably don't like anything that's good," because it's undeniable to me. Like, and it looks like they're having a fucking like when I saw them in 2001.
Yeah,
like it seems almost like they're having like a fucking identity crisis. Because they look like the fucking Casualties.
Yeah.
But they're playing pop music essentially. And like they're shouting out like from the small stage I watch them on, they're just like, "Yo, Rancid's on in like 30 minutes, one of our biggest influences." And I was just like, well, you can't fucking hear that influence. Because you sound like top 40 music.
Well, but like also Benji and Joel will famously tell a story that it was going to see the Beastie Boys that like really pushed them to start a band.
Right. And like I feel you can hear the fucking Beastie Boys influence more than fucking Rancid. Like it's such a weird I've been like because I'm in creative mode at the moment as we're like demoing and doing pre-production for our next record. I've been analyzing songs so much that I feel like I'm fucking Neo in the Matrix. I'm not hearing anything. I feel like I'm just seeing the code. And like I keep trying to listen to shit, but I'm not hearing it. I'm just like, cool part, interesting melody. Like
I'm so a little bit about my background, Casey, and you know, anyone listening has probably heard me talk about this several times on the show before, but so I've been a music journalist for actually next week, April 29th will mark 9 years since I started my first blog, but a little longer that I had, you know, been sort of trying to figure that out. So, you know, 9 years, close to a decade. And for the first time, it's been like the past 5 months or so that I haven't been writing. Like I put out the book, spent a little time trying to just, you know, enjoying free time basically. And then now I'm starting this podcast, but I feel like my brain is still just in critic mode.
Yeah.
Like everything I listen to, I'm like, this is what the headline of my article about that song will be.
Yeah, that's kind of how I've been, and I'm hoping it's not affecting whatever our sound. Like no part of me with time ever thought about structure or melody. It was just like cold, hard feelings, distortion. That's it. I didn't think about it because, and it comes back to what we were talking about at the beginning, I just assumed no one would hear this, and it didn't matter, and it doesn't matter. But now I know that people will hear whatever comes out next,
Right.
You know, at least a small group of people will anyways, like that I don't fucking know.
So, I mean, how do you feel like that affects you? Is it like the wanting to make something that sounds good, or does it come out in the lyrics and like what you're willing to express in the lyrics, knowing that people are going to hear it?
Maybe, like, okay, so With Time deals with, you know, a number of things.
Yeah.
A handful of things, which is like my mental health. I'll probably never stop writing songs about that because I'll probably never feel good, except for brief spurts. And then like stuff with my stepdad, having a real bad time with my stepdad at the time when I wrote that. And that's about it. Like, that's kind of what the album is about. And like, this next album is going to have songs. I've written 3 songs about writing songs.
I love that.
And like my frustration with it. And like, there is one song on With Time about writing songs, which is History, worth repeating. But that one, like, there's not much, I don't know, philosophizing in it. It's just me 12 years after having not written a song saying, I hope I can still write a song.
Yeah.
But now, like, I'm writing songs about writing songs, which is just truly insane.
It's
like,
meta. It's very meta.
It is very meta.
Yeah.
But it's just like, it's what I'm feeling at the moment, which is that like writing songs is hard, kind of. Yeah. I didn't conceptualize that during With Time. Those kind of just fell out of me. But now I'm like trying to write songs, and I'm thinking about structure, and I'm thinking about melody, and I'm thinking about lyrics, and I'm thinking about the fact that, you know, people will hear it and it's made for a different kind of sound, but hopefully it still sounds like us, and hopefully people still fucking like it. But I guess at the end of the day, you know, in a cavalier way that I probably don't really feel, I'm gonna say, I fuck them. I'm doing it for myself.
Right. I mean, you have to, like, I have come to the realization that, like, no matter how much public recognition or like how much money I would be making from whatever, you know, creative thing I'm doing, like, I have to find some kind of value in the expression, like, regardless of the audience or the, you know, financial reward. Otherwise, it's like, yeah, just be like a fucking accountant or something, you know?
Yeah, like, it's what a nightmare life is.
Right. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, and then like being stuck at home too right now during this fucking quarantine is just like put me in the weirdest like heads. Like, every day I feel a little more surreal and a little more out of touch. Colors are brighter. Like, I'm fucking staying up till 3 in the morning every
my sleep patterns
day.
are so out of whack. So for a while, I was really good about working out in the mornings, like 3 days a week. And then this happened, and I would be like, well, I can just sleep in, because I've been working from home for over a month now, and like I work 9 to 5 and I'm hourly. But, you know, there was like a week or two where I was like, oh, I can just wake up at like 8:30 and roll out of bed at 8:45 and just brush my teeth and kind of drink my coffee while I'm starting my work day. But I'm like trying, this week we're only Tuesday, but this week I'm trying to force myself to just get back to that, like, okay, you know, continue getting up early to exercise and feel like a human. But it's very, very weird.
Yeah. It's it's very strange. And then like my kids are slowly going insane out of boredom and stir craziness. And like, none of them traditionally liked school, but I've had, you know, 2 of them break down in tears and just be like, I gotta go back to school. We got to.
Have they had like online classes at all?
Yeah. We've been doing online school in the mornings for like the last 3 weeks. Mm-hmm. And my wife is a teacher, or she's the media specialist, so she's doing the kind of it's like such a weird system they have set up. I don't know. I feel like my kids are, very smart, and like they're all straight A students and have like an innate understanding of the things they're learning. But I am like really feeling for like some of the people like my wife is dealing with.
Yeah.
Because their parents aren't keeping them on track, and they kind of just honestly don't give a shit. And their kids, like the kids aren't on top of all the things. And I'm just like, God, this is going to fuck so many people up for the rest of their lives. Like this is setting them behind. Like, yeah, it's like, oof. We're never, for the rest of our lives, we're never not going to feel the effects of what is happening right now, which is probably why we're all feeling like a little surreal, like walking around like a bunch of fucking bug-eyed zombies, not knowing what's going on. Like,
no, I think back to like my college experience, and as I had said earlier, like I switched my major a few times, and like even what I ended up getting my degree in doesn't really relate to what I do now,
I'm much like almost anyone.
Right. Exactly. But I think back to college, and it's like what I remember is about college, aside from like my one history of rock and roll class, which was awesome and like what pushed me to start writing about music. Aside from that, like, I don't really remember like what I got out of classes so much as just being, obviously was very privileged that I was able to like go out of state and live on campus for 4 years, but just that whole experience, and I feel for like my younger sister is finishing up, or it's like, this is her last semester technically.
Yeah.
So back to the song. So
I feel like we have hardly talked about Screamer. Is this how this normally goes?
That's what's fun about this podcast is like I'm having so much fun. Like, obviously diving deep into whatever song, but also just getting to have cool conversations, learn about my guest and sidetrack a lot and everything. But one thing I've had some fun doing is going over the comments from songmeanings.com, which
sure.
So this website, predates Genius and is like, whereas genius.com will have like official annotations quite often, songmeanings.com is almost purely, I think, or maybe even purely completely fans, and it's just fans commenting their interpretations of the song. So I'll read off 2 comments. So user Terrycloth Kitten 242 says,
hell yeah.
Right, I know, I love that username. Says, this song reminds me of an old boyfriend of mine. I'm your, and by the way, this is all lowercase. I'm your typical dreamer, and he was always telling me that daydreaming gets you nowhere, and I should working to make my life. And of course, all we did was fight, so we eventually broke up, and I'm having fun with my life while he's in the hospital with some stress disease. I guess life favors the dreamers who travel with the wind. I was like, wow, that got deep.
I mean, holy shit. Imagine posting that on the internet and just being like probably walking away from it and just being like, I fucking said my piece on songmeanings.com.
Right.
Like, that is truly insane behavior, but also incredibly common.
Right. And also, like, okay, I kind of get it, just wanting to, like, shout into the void like that,
I mean, that is what the internet is for.
Yeah, and it's, if you go on, like, songmeanings.com and your user is Terrycloth Kitten 242, that's pretty anonymous versus, like, posting on, I mean, this comment was from many years ago before Instagram was a thing, but, like, versus posting on your Instagram story.
Sure. But it's just also, like, what, I mean, I guess it's just, like, a personal catharsis.
Yeah.
Like, you're like, all right, I got it out.
Yeah.
But it's just such a strange way to get it out. Strange, anonymous way that, like, the person you're talking about is never going to fucking see this. And probably no one you even know. Like,
Right. I mean, there's a whole subreddit dedicated. There's Off My Chest, and I think there's a separate one called like venting or something.
Sure, but even that has a little more intentionality than songmeanings.com.
Right. Commenting on songmeanings.com like that, it's kind of like, okay, no one's gonna see this. But
like a ranting subreddit, like that is purposeful, and other people are going to see it, and be like, yeah,
I get that. I get that. Fuck
it. Rant it up. But this is just like you think. Could Terry Cloth Kit never fucking told anybody about this?
I imagine they didn't. I imagine they did not.
I wonder if Terry Cloth Kitten thinks about this ever, and it's like,
right,
like why did I do this?
Right. Why did I do this? Right. And it's probably like, it's been, 15 plus years, almost 20 years since they posted that comment. And they probably don't remember the password to this account. So they can't just like go and delete, all their old comments and such.
I wonder if they even remember it. Like, I wonder if you told them, they might be like, I didn't fucking do that.
I'd be like, yes, you did.
Yeah, you did, Terry Cloth Kid. Because I'm sure I've done similar things that I don't remember. Isn't it strange when someone tells you, do you remember when you did this? And you're just like, no.
Right. No, no, that was not me. What do you speak of?
Yeah, it's oh man.
So the other comment that I have pulled comes from user Karina KMJ. So this person was not trying to stay anonymous, because I'm guessing her name is Karina and her initials are KMJ. So Karina KMJ says, yeah, Dreamin' apostrophe DREAMIN apostrophe is fun, and the song sound cool. It was my fave too, but now I think I know what screamer means, and I don't like the meaning. In slang, screamer means someone who makes some noise while doing, what. I don't know if that's because I haven't heard that anywhere else, that anyone else saying really that's what this is. And I don't want to be like, oh no, it's definitely not that, because I don't know, I'm not in Joel Madden's head, but I wouldn't say that that's what I got from this song.
Yeah, but I guess that's the point of a song in a certain sense is people are gonna take it into their brain and make the meaning what it is to them, and it's once you put your art out into the world, your idea of what a song means is pretty fucking invalid, except for to you.
Yeah.
At that point, it doesn't, that's so,
That's a good point.
I guess they can have that obviously wrong opinion.
Well, I remember being in ninth grade and taking, being in English class and getting very frustrated because my English teachers in high school would always I felt like they would always insist that their interpretation of the literature was correct, and if you had any other interpretation, then you were wrong. And I was
oh yeah, dude, I'm taking a class right now. I'm taking I've kind of started going back to school.
Okay.
My wife got her master's and she went to work, and it was decided that I would become a stay-at-home dad.
Okay.
And also give me, because at the point where I made this decision, it seemed like Virginity would be doing a lot more things, and that I should. My wife's extremely supportive and was just like, you should focus on this more. But I started taking classes also because I kind of quit college because we had kids very young, obviously. Right. So she could go because she's fucking smarter than me, and her interests lie in a field that can definitely make money,
right? And
mine don't. So I've gone back and I'm taking class online. I'm taking a literature and culture class right now, and one of the last two assignments I've had to do is we're studying Shakespeare, and I had to read The Merchant of Venice and also Othello, And he wrote out like these long things breaking down the stories, but putting his own kind of interpretation into a lot of the things. And the assignment was to go through his go through his thing and pick out 12 statements and tell how that helped enhance the story for me. Like I'm just going through this man's thing and just being like, oh, daddy, this helped me. This helped me learn better, daddy. Thank you.
Right.
Like, it's so crazy.
Right. I mean, it's like, to me, being 14 or so and hearing that, it was this very weird thing because I was, as I had said earlier, starting to write on my own just to express myself and figure things out. But then it was like I would go to school and like English was my worst class, and these like supposed authorities were like, nope, you suck. And I'm just like, what? But clearly, I mean, writing has since my full-time job isn't writing, but it led to writing in a very big way led to what is my full-time job in the industry, and has informed me doing now this podcast.
Right. It's all leads towards something. Like everything has its even if it's not connected, there's a step you had to take to get there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Boy, this has been such a heady fucking conversation for such a ridiculous song.
Yeah. Well, as we wrap up, I mean, how do you feel this song has held up for you, Casey?
I mean, right now I'm feeling like it's a fucking genius work of art because,
right.
because it was the launching off point for like one of the most intense philosophical discussions I've ever had about the human psyche and need for attention.
Yes. hey, my psychology degree did get me somewhere then. There we go. But also like it's just a catchy song, so in that way it holds up for me. Like, at the end of the day, I looked at the tracks on the album, and this is the one I picked because for some some part of subconscious part of my brain's like, that one rocks. And I love the end, like the ending part is so good where they're like, take out the line, take out the line, start screaming. Like, yeah, dude. I mean, it rocks. And they harmonize. Like, oh, that's like another thing that rocks about Good Charlotte that you don't see except for in like a couple bands. Like, it's almost akin, and it's so crazy because stylistically they couldn't be more different, akin to the Avett Brothers. Okay.
No one harmonizes with anyone as well as two brothers or two sisters, like family members, somebody that you deeply harmonize with on not even a singing level, just as human beings, and it just shines through. Like Benji and Joel harmonize effortlessly, and I saw them live. They did it live, and it was perfect. And like there's sort of that deep connection as brothers and singing and stuff, and I get that. I feel that same energy from people like the Avett Brothers and stuff.
Okay.
Like you can just hear it, and they do it masterfully at the end of Screamer. Yeah.
Now, I would say what has really held up for me about this song, and that I've really come to appreciate about this song, is the fact that it really captures that exact frame of mind you have to be to write something like this. That I can tell that this was a song that was written when they were, I mean, I'm imagining in their bedroom, but who knows? And just thinking, okay, no one's going to hear this. Just fuck it. I just need to get this off my chest, and how freeing and cathartic that can really feel.
Yeah. I mean, and right. Which circles back to the point we've been making the entire time, which is a song like Screamer couldn't be on another Good Charlotte album because there are people seeing and hearing them. This song could only be written for the first album because it's the only album where you could feel this way. They know they're seen and heard now.
Yeah.
You know, more than most people.
And like, what we talked about so, you know, Casey, as we're recording this, you have not heard this episode because it hasn't come out yet as we were recording, but listeners, in last week's episode, we talked about with Shadowboxer, Benji initially being a little hesitant to put that song on Generation RX, which is their most recent record from 2018, saying that he was hesitant about, you know, sharing so much about their upbringing, which, you know, back in the day on this first record, I mean, that's so much of what this first record is about, you know, and then, but, you know, so many years later, it's like you realize you have all that attention on you, and I think it does make it harder for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
So, Casey, just a few more questions to wrap up. What has Good Charlotte meant to you over the years, and how has that changed, or like, has that changed?
So they're definitely like an entry-level band for me. Like, this is really early in my musical development. Like, this is one of the first things I get into. And I didn't keep up with them past this album. I certainly bought Young and the Hopeless, but I did not like it.
Okay.
They lost. I just remember being a young little punk boy, a little tiny little boy with a fucking propeller beanie and a big lollipop with a mohawk, and and hearing fucking Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous and just being like, "You're fucking on MTV. What are you talking about? This is madness."
Wait till you hear I Just Want to Live.
But this album, like, it's so strange. It's not one I revisit a ton, but when I do,
you're like,
I'm like, God, this is so good. It's so good. And I honestly think I like it now more than I did even then. Like, I might be a bigger Good Charlotte fan, at least for this record, than I was in the past, because I have so much more admiration for them in terms of just being like, even when I didn't think I would have an audience of some kind, I don't know if I would have been as fearless in my, in my cheesiness. Like, there's like, it's so free of fucking cynicism.
Yeah.
And I like that.
Yeah. It's a great thing about this record. So, Casey, do you have any last words about Screamer, about Good Charlotte, about Virginity, or about yourself that you want to share?
I feel we have tapped Screamer out, certainly, even though I feel like we've hardly talked about it. But we did.
We did, and we talked about a lot. And that's what's the fun of this, is like getting to talk about, the stuff that they talk about in the songs, and how can we have a conversation out of that.
Yeah. I mean, Good Charlotte rocks. Like, they're, even though I don't really listen to like the new shit or whatever, I accept them as an undeniably good band because, this album's fucking 20 years old and they're still a band.
Yeah.
Like, almost no one does that. Like,
yeah,
their success is undeniable. So obviously Good Charlotte rocks. Even if it's not for me, 100%.
Yeah.
And about Virginity, I don't know. I guess in 2 days, listen to REP. It's called Death to the Party. Bad Call will have been out for a little while, which we made a music video for during quarantine. So,
I love that.
So we couldn't get together, obviously. So I kind of took it upon myself to make a music video, and me and my wife and children spent literally an entire day making it, and it came out so insanely good. I can't fucking believe we made it in our house.
Oh, I can't wait to see that.
Yeah, I'll fucking send it to you now. But yeah, it's gonna it's funny and fucked up and cool, but it's also like a thing I'll look back on and just be like, yeah, this was like a family day.
Yeah, I love that.
And yeah, that's it. Listen to our shit, and I hope that you all like it.
Awesome. Casey, thank you so much. Where can people find you or the band on the internet? What are your socials?
We are at Virginity is Rad on Twitter and Instagram, which is where we're most I don't know, whatever. That's the shit we use the most. We have a Facebook. If you're a Facebook person, you can go like the page, but I interact on the other things a lot more.
Sure. Yeah.
And our website is virginityisrad.com, and that'll take you to anything you could possibly want.
Awesome.
From us.
Casey, thank you so much. Listeners, thank you all for tuning in to another episode of Generation GC. You can follow the podcast at Generation GC Pod, Pod, on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. You can follow me, Molly, at M Hudelson, at MHUDELSON on Twitter or Instagram. We talked to you about Screamer today. Next week, we will be back at you with an episode about The Young and the Hopeless, a song from that album. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in.